The classic da-dum, 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 da.
Is this the first time you've talked this in detail about your drumming?
Yes, I think it probably is. I'm Phil Collins, and I'm a drummer.
When's the last time you held a pair of sticks for that long?
Suddenly I was going to join a pop band. Any songs that I'm the most proud of as a drummer? I mean, there's plenty of things I'm probably a bit embarrassed about. Genesis have been around for such a long time that I kind of feel a love-hate relationship with it. I've been charmed with an interesting career. You know, it's never got boring.
How did you get started playing drums, and what made you want to pick up the sticks in the first place?
It's about when I was 3, I think. I got for Christmas, I got a drum, you know, plastic drum. And in those days, Christmas was, you know, a drum, a soldier, a car. It wasn't, you know, the Star Wars collection or anything like that. So I got the drum, and I can't, the camera went off in my head, and I have very vivid memories of sitting and playing with this drum. And I took to it instinctively, I think. And then when I was about 4 or 5, they made me a little drum kit with like crosswood with poles sticking out, and on the, you know, there was a triangle, and there was a cymbal, and you know, like a small drum. It was something I could sit at or kneel at, and I thrashed along to the television, and it got louder and louder until I was banished to the bedroom. You know, there was a guy across the road that had a snare drum and a bass drum. And it was only about 10 quid, you know, £10. So my mum or dad, or mum and dad, they bought that for me. And then I started to slowly expand on that and play along to records.
Hey guys, it's Nick here. Hope you're enjoying the video so far. Just wanted to let you guys know that we've actually put together a free ebook for you guys. It includes some behind the scenes photos, some information about the music, and some sheet music for all the drummers out there as well. It'll help you get more out of the video, and it's completely free for you guys. So check it out at the link in the description.
In your book, you said that when you were 17, you gave up acting, and you told your parents that you wanted to be a drummer. Was that a major turning point for you?
Yeah, well, as I do say in the book, that my dad particularly was very proud of me being in the West End, you know, in Oliver, which was a huge show. And I was the Artful Dodger, you know, so, and that was a big part. Suddenly I went from being like, he had bragging rights on that. Suddenly I was going to join a pop band. We didn't know what yet, and we didn't know, you know, I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I became a professional auditioner that just answered the back pages of Melody Maker, and went for auditions.
And that's how you got the gig with Genesis, was through Melody Maker?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Genesis require a drummer sensitive to acoustic music, and it was just a job as far as I was concerned. But I do remember that I was very aware of what Genesis were becoming, you know. I mean, they were always in the back pages of Melody Maker doing gigs. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work, you know. But there was one band that were on the south coast of England, and I recognised the name from the adverts for the gigs. And I said, I rang them up, and I said, well, where do you want me to go to audition? And they said, well, you want to come down here to Bournemouth, which was this place on the south coast. And I said, I'll call you back. So I called them back, and I said, my mum doesn't really like me to travel. I'm joining a band, right? So I didn't go for that audition. I went for auditions for Manfred Mann, Vinegar Joe, which became Dada, which was Robert Palmer, Elkie Brooks, and the auditions were good, but I never seemed to get anything. Don't know why, but I went to the Genesis audition with a friend of mine, and Peter Gabriel said that as soon as he saw me sit down on a drum stool, he knew that I was a drummer. And I got a call back for that. Not a call back, really. I got called to say I got the job. But all went slowly downhill from there.
The rest is history. Who were some of your favorite drummers growing up, your biggest influences? I know you've mentioned Roger Powell from The Action.
Yeah. I got an email from him this lunchtime, funnily enough. We stay in touch all the time. He was my hero. Obviously there was Ringo, there was Charlie Watts, Ginger Baker. But Roger was, and the band, The Action, were like, I used to go and see him at the Marquee Club, any opportunity. And funnily enough, I was always too shy to go and say hello to him. And he said pretty recently that he wish I had, because we're kind of like brothers, we stay in touch all the time. And I got to play with The Action finally in the early 2000s. But, at the same time, I was listening to Buddy Rich. I was listening to Sonny Payne with Count Basie. I was Elvin Jones with John Coltrane. So my net was pretty wide, I
was talking with Nic yesterday, and he said that Keith Moon was also one of your favorites.
Yeah. Oh, Keith Moon, I did a session for Pete Townsend just after Keith Moon died. Pete and I became very good friends, as did Roger and I. And, I said, I'd love to do it. And, I read in his book that he said that I had a big solo career and it probably wouldn't have worked. And he's probably right. But Keith Moon is one of the drummers I kind of worship. He's totally unique. And he gives the band the life,
In your book, you talk about the session you did with George and Ringo, and you said you were in A Hard Day's Night when you were a young kid.
Yeah, I never saw me. I was in the concert stuff at the end. Yeah, I got sent some footage where I thought I saw me. And the reason I thought it was me was because of the shirt I had on. I wasn't screaming like everybody else. I wanted to listen. And so, maybe it's for that reason that I got cut out, amongst all the kids. There's that kid, he's listening, cut it out. So George Martin and I became very good friends. He was a wonderful man.
Jumping ahead, talking about Genesis, did you have any kind of pre-show rituals or routines that you would go through before you would play in front of an audience? I know Nic talked about the band huddles that you used to do that he would get really upset if he wasn't there for.
Well, we did it with Genesis, which I was very surprised about because I don't think Tony and Mike don't, they don't feel to me kind of spiritual. That's very harsh, but I don't mean it in a negative way. To say a prayer in front of other people that you don't know particularly well, is a strange thing. The first time I had, I was in a band, was the Eric Clapton band with Greg Fillinganes and Nathan East, and all of them were spiritual. I mean, Nathan East's brother, Ray, he was a pastor, and we'd all take it in turns, and the first time it came to my turn, I was terrified. But then, you do it, and you realize it's a spiritual thing. It's not a religious thing particularly. But yeah, the huddle was in Moscow, and we were playing in Moscow, and this was my band, not Genesis, and they left late. I mean, we were down the gig, but Nic and Matthew and his mum, or their mum, and got stuck in traffic, and Nic rushed backstage to do the huddle. I said, "We've missed the huddle now. We've got to go on stage. Why don't you go back and watch the video of the band?" So I don't want to do that. I mean. Anyway, so we did a little private huddle just for you. I mean, it's a spiritual moment. Nothing wrong with that.
Are there any records or songs that you're the most proud of when it comes to your drumming?
Well, some songs capture that moment, Mama is a good example. Chinese Wall on Philip Bailey's album. I'm very proud of the drumming on that particular track. Some of the big band stuff, I mean, I don't listen to my stuff at home, so if it creeps up behind me and I listen, it catches me by surprise, I can say, "Oh, that's pretty good actually," but I can't.
What about on the other side? Are there any songs that you hear now that you just really don't like?
Yeah.
Maybe some that other drummers really do like.
Well, I don't know what other people like. Genesis have been around for such a long time that, I kind of feel a love-hate relationship with it. Living Forever, for example, on We Can't Dance, I think it is. That flashes into my brain. Is one of those songs with an instrumental kind of sequence in the middle of it. And it was, in those days, we just did it once or twice. And, if we didn't get it, maybe we'd try it again another day. But no, I mean, there's plenty of things that listening back, I'm probably a bit embarrassed about. I mean, having good ears and growing up and having a bit of taste, or thinking you have, you see things a bit more in perspective. I mean, there was a time when all the holes got filled in, and those are the things that I don't like listening to particularly now.
Yeah.
One of my favourite things I mentioned is Apocalypse in 9/8, you know, where it all just fitted together. And that happened just by luck, really, and not knowing what you were doing some of the time. I mean, a drummer's takes, usually early ones, and that was the Supper's Ready version, and the original Supper's Ready version. And later on, they become more experimental.
There's one song, Down and Out from, and then there were three, which, is that one of those songs?
Well, that period of Genesis, and then there were three, I'm not particularly fond of. This is just, you know, from a personal point of view. I mean, I do some fills on Down and Out that I couldn't do today. Well, you know, I mean, I did them in the studio, and they worked great. But that was when I was, you know, I'd only just become the singer a couple of albums in. So I was very intent on chops and, you know, and trying to do things that I had never done before. I mean, I haven't heard it for ages, but I mean, it's a period piece.
Yeah. What would you say was the most difficult part of playing in Genesis? Was it the music? Was it the personalities in the band?
Genesis?
Yeah.
No, we always got on great. I mean, there was never any backstage fights or anything like that. I mean, you know, one tended to walk away because you could see it coming, you know.
Yeah.
No, it was, we did a lot of laughing, actually, and we enjoyed ourselves when we were together. Yeah, you know, no, it was most of the time a happy band.
When it came to writing your own music, whether it was the Disney movies or even on your solo material, how did being a drummer influence the way that you wrote your music or the soundtracks? Did you start with the drums and then move to the melody, or was it the other way?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with some rhythmic pulse. I mean, Tarzan, obviously, you know, I mean, I got thought of for Tarzan, presumably because of the drums, and I worked very hard on that and the musical. It was great fun to do. People tend to sort of, oh, it's only a cartoon, you know. I mean, I worked for 5 years on that, and then another couple of years on the stage musical. I mean, I knew that stuff backwards and forwards, and it's difficult to do. You know, I mean, it's not kid stuff, and that's probably what's great about Disney is it works on many different levels. You know, to be involved in that, you know, working with an orchestra, and especially when the musical came out, you know, I had to write some new songs, extra songs, and that was some of the best stuff I did. There's songs in that show which I'm very, very proud of, and it was me stretching my envelope as a songwriter. You know, which is why just do this? Why not expand your horizons? So I jumped at it.
Jumping ahead a little bit, How does it feel to be officially retired? Was that a tough decision to make to end that last tour and officially retire, or do you still miss being on the road?
No, I would say that I have no intention of doing anything else. You know, I mean, the drumming has taken its toll on my my hands, legs. You know, it's and I don't want to be a caricature of myself, so I'd rather stop. You know, but you know, it's if I can't do what I did as well as I did it, I'd rather, you know, relax and not do anything. If I get the urge to do it, then you know, I'll write, or I'll if I wake up one day and I can, you know, hold a pair of drumsticks, and then I will have a crack at it. But it just, you know, I just feel like I've used up my air miles. You know.
When you first realized that you couldn't play drums the way you used to, what were the thoughts going through your mind?
Well, I mean, it's still kind of sinking in a bit. I spent you know, I'm 71. I've spent all my life playing drums. To suddenly not be able to do that is a shock. You know, I'm a bit deaf in this ear. I did something to my foot, I'm not sure. That's why I use a walking stick. You know, it's just like bits are falling off. It's like an old used car, you know. But it's okay. I've had a very good innings, as they say. And I've done it, you know, most of the things I think that I wanted to do. People have enjoyed it in the main. And, you know, I've got nothing to complain about. I've got 5 great kids. I live in a reasonably modest house. You know, I don't want for anything. So you know, I'm one of the lucky ones, really.
When you look back at when you were a young kid and you wanted to be a professional drummer, did you ever think that you would be at this point where you've played the biggest venues in the world and you've toured with your son on drums, and did you ever think you would make it there?
Well, no, I mean, I never, you know, you never think it's going to happen to you. I mean, I never had any doubt in my ability, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen, you know. I mean, I think, I mean, I played with some of my biggest heroes. You know, one thing we didn't touch on was I was asked to play in a Grammy salute to jazz. The phone call I got was like, did I want to play with Tony Williams and Buddy Rich? You know, and I said, yeah, sure. So I went to LA and I went into the rehearsal room, and there was Buddy on his kit, Tony Williams, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, B.B. King, Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Getz. There was all of these names So I sat down at my kit, and I got introduced to Buddy Rich, and he was very nice. And the guy handed out music, you know, and I went cold, you know. I said, what do I do with this? And Buddy Rich said, 50 years in this fucking business, and all they give me is 8 bars of brushes. And Tony Williams said, I'm playing mallets. What are you playing? So I said, I'm playing sticks. And suddenly I had the best gig. Now I don't read music, but this was called Honeysuckle Rose. And I didn't know how it went. And the arranger counted off the tune. And da 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 da. And I said, oh, why don't they write that out, you know? So anyway, the idea was 8 bars of Buddy, 8 bars of Tony Williams, and 8 bars of me. And it was like a train coming towards me, you know. I mean, Buddy Rich had 1 foot on his bass drum, the drum itself, with his brushes, and he did his 8 bars, and then Tony Williams did a killer 8 bars of mallets. And then in my 8 bars of drums would come in, and I shudder when I think about it. Well, after about 2 or 3 run-throughs, I went up to the arranger and I said, I don't think this is for me. And I said goodbye to a few people. And Herbie Hancock, he said, what's the matter, man? Someone intimidating you? So I said, no, it's not that. It's just that I don't think I'm up for this. You know, so I left. And before I left, Buddy came up and said, so you produce records. How about producing one for me? And I said, yeah, he gave him my number. I said, call me. Of course, I'd love to. Anyway, he died not long after that. It wasn't always smooth, you know. I mean, I kind of grown up enough to know when to extract myself from the situation. Because there's no point in just being there to make up the numbers when really you shouldn't be there at all. I mean, I think the whole band saw the kind of way of doing it, this salute to jazz, in a different way. And when the program, when I was in the audience, when it actually happened, and it was, you know, one style of jazz, another style of jazz, 2 different bands playing, and that's what it should have been, I think. But I've had a charmed life, like, you know, I think that the people I've mentioned and I met, you know, I played with the Buddy Rich band. When I did my second big band tour, I went, did a gig with them, you know, so it all came around in the end.
You mentioned some amazing drummers there, and I want to bring up some other drummers like Taylor Hawkins, Clive Bunker, Neil Peart. They all call you one of their biggest influences. And did you ever think that you would have such an impact on so many other great drummers?
They called me what?
One of their biggest influences.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Taylor, I mean, Nick, you know, you knew him better than I did. I mean, I only met him a couple of times. We did message and email each other, but no, I never dreamt for one moment that those guys would even, you know, listen. Because, you know, the Genesis stuff is a little complicated and it's a little tricky-dicky, but my stuff is quite simple. And I'm very proud of the fact that they could see through that, see the drama behind all that.
With all these things that you did, all these performances, was there anything else that you wish you could have done? Maybe an artist that you could have played with or a band you could have played with?
The only person I got to know a little bit, but didn't play with, is Joe Zawinul. You know, I just love what he does, or did. And we played the Syndicate, and my band, we played North Sea Jazz Festival. And there was Tower of Power and Buddy Guy. Joe Zawinul came to my caravan, you know. It was indoors, but there was no dressing rooms. And he, you know, it was like meeting God, you know. And he invited me over to his caravan, and we had a couple of Sliboviches, and we exchanged numbers, and I stayed in touch with him. You know, he used to send me postcards, and I would send him messages. But I wish I'd have played with him, although I would have been scared stiff.
On the last Domino tour, you had the chance to play with Nic on drums. What was that like for you, being in the front and being able to turn around and see Nic on the kit?
Yeah, well, made me immensely proud. I mean, we'd played together a few times leading up to that at Little Dreams things, you know, with this charity that I had with Nic's mum. He played with us a bit. I mean, there's so many times when I've seen him play, from when he sat on my lap, you know, through till yesterday when you were sitting on my lap. It's strange to even think about it. I mean, if you'd have told me 17, 18 years ago that he'd have been playing in Genesis or in my band, you know, come to that, but it would have, I'd have laughed. It's so unlikely, the chances. But we were playing, I don't know what year it was now, the Albert Hall, and Mike and Tony were there in the audience. You know, we played there 5, 6 nights, and it was suggested that he, you know, because they, you know, they were all impressed by the fact that how well he played, and a little bit that it sounded like me when I was younger, with, you know, a bit of fire. And I think, well, they both agreed that it could work, you know, and that kind of sold me on doing the band thing again, because I saw it as giving Nic a taste of what life could be like, and also an opportunity, if you like. The worst thing about having another drummer, if it's not you, is you don't want to be turning around all the time or twitching because they're not doing what you do. And I found that Nic had enough of me doing what I would do and bringing something new to it as well. And we rehearsed in New York for a couple of weeks, and it just fitted together very easily. And then the tours got a bit, you know, it got longer. But there were never any rough moments, were there? There was never any, you know, doubts, or there was never any arguments, or it just went ridiculously smoothly.
Were there any songs that you preferred Nic's playing on? Anything he changed that you just really liked on a certain song?
Oh, God.
Putting you on the spot.
Well, no, I mean, it's like I can't really remember. I mean, you know, if I had something to say, I would bring it up, whether it was speed or whether it was arrangements or whatever. But I only had to sort of mention it once. He fixed it, you know. I mean, there wasn't anything he mentioned before about speeds and tempos, you know. But that's kind of subjective, and sometimes things feel very different when you're playing it as opposed to when you're singing with it or when you're listening to it. So, no, I mean, I'm so pleased that we did it. I'm so pleased you did it. It was something that I wouldn't have altered for the world.
Did you teach Nic how to play when he was younger?
No. No, I mean, I didn't really want to be responsible for that. We used to have this thing, secret number 1, secret number 2. And I've got all the videos, you know, used to tape everything. And it's extraordinary. We tried to find something, didn't we, for his band's video. And I was amazed at just how there was a groove even when he was very, very young. And my way of, you know, helping, not teaching, but helping, was to have these things which we called secrets, you know. And so we had this little conversation, secret number 3, you know, and he'd be playing something and go into secret number 3, which, you know, it was constantly getting better and constantly getting better. And it's a happy ending.
So we're almost at the end of the video now, and I hope you guys have been enjoying it so far. Just wanted to remind you guys again that we put together a free ebook for you guys with some behind the scenes photos, some sheet music, and some more information about the songs that my dad has been talking about. You can check it out at the link in the description, and it's totally free, and it'll help you get more out of the video.
Nic was telling us yesterday about one time you were playing, I think it was at Royal Albert Hall, and Nic was on the piano and you were singing, and his keyboard got split into a bass and a piano, and it transposed. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. It's fucking broken. I can't play, Dad. Can't play. It's broken. Yeah, well, that was one of the highlights of the show, you know, when I sat down and he sat down on the piano stool and I sat next to him, and we sang a very, you know, poignant song. You've never forgotten it, have you?
No, still have nightmares about it.
You've said in some past interviews, there's this quote of you saying, "I'm not a singer who plays a bit of drums. I'm a drummer that sings a bit." And what does that mean to you? Do you wish more people recognized you for your drumming compared to your singing? Even yesterday you said, "I felt like me when I was playing drums."
You know, I could go back to the drums and be me.
What do you mean by that?
Well, riddled with insecurities, probably. I mean, it's just somewhere that's where I lived, you know, for a long time. And to come out from behind the kit and stand, you know, in front of an audience and say, "Hey, look at me, dig me." You know, it's not really who I am. And, you know, I mean, it's I've got a way of working with it now where, you know, the audience can laugh and I don't feel bad about it. You know? But yeah, I mean, we ended up with a sort of, I guess, if I didn't take over, we'd have probably folded. Or if I didn't sing, I didn't take over. But if I didn't sing, and we had a long search for a singer that didn't amount to much. And you know, it worked in my favour that I'd been in the band 5 years, 6 years. It worked out all right in the end.
Yeah. Do you wish more people knew you as a drummer compared to a singer?
Well, no, I mean now I don't play at all. I mean, I didn't play on the last Genesis run, and even on my tour, we just did the, what do you call them?
The cajon thing?
Yeah, cajon things. Those that know can find out. I mean, you know, they buy the records and there'll be me on it. But no regrets.
If you could go back in time and looking at your whole career, is there anything that you would do differently?
I'd never let go of the lady's leg. Steve Martin, sorry. No, I don't think there is anything I would do differently, because, you know, one thing leads to another, and you may not think it's going to work, and then suddenly you turn a corner and it's something else is there, you know. So no, I have no feelings that I wish I'd pursued this or hadn't done that. You know, I've been charmed with an interesting career. You know, it's never got boring.
Do you have any advice that you could give to all of the drummers out there?
New drummers.
New drummers, old drummers, any of them?
Well, you know, I mean, I've always thought that it's the song, you know. It's the song you're playing for. And you don't play a song and try to put your chops in if it's not helping the song. I mean, you know, it's when I see or I hear drum things that are, if it's not appropriate. And I mean, there are certain exceptions, like with the original Mahavishnu and Billy Cobham, you know, that was what it was. That's what made it what it was, you know. I mean, that and all the guys doing that magical thing that worked. No, you serve the song, you serve the music, and that's, you know, I mean, that's why, certainly from my point of view with Genesis, you know, I was quite happy to play something like A Trick of the Tail or Squonk, you know, or Los Endos. I mean, whatever the song required, not just to show off what you can do, because in the end that just, you know, clutters up the space, and it's not what I would say appropriate. I'm not a singer that plays a bit of drums. I'm more of a drummer that sings a bit.